Hello, and thank you for checking out this message from Grace Church San Diego. If you've never been a slave, you might assume you are free, but the truth is that we are often in bondage to the many choices we make. God has a clear answer to this dilemma. You can truly be free and embrace your best life. The series Rescued will help you to understand step by step how you can secure true freedom. We'd love to hear how Grace Church is affecting your life. Please send an email to info@gracesd.com with your story. Or if you'd like to help support our ministry financially, you can visit the website below so we can continue to help people find Christ and become His mature followers.
So I interviewed a good buddy of mine from the church named Mike in preparation for this message. He's a new father, awesome dad, he's a great husband, and he's a San Diego firefighter right now. But when I met Mike, he was an Ocean Beach lifeguard. And so I asked him a series of questions, and one of the questions I asked him was, when you are up in the tower looking at the ocean, what are the signs that you're looking for someone that needs to be rescued, like they're in trouble and about to go down? And he said, well, one thing is I know how to read the oceans. I know the currents, I know when the wave sets are coming, I can see that. And when I can identify if someone doesn't know how to read the ocean. And if they don't know how to read it and they're out there, that's a sign that they may get in trouble. He said also the absence of a stroke. He says, I don't know, I imagine it's like a Baywatch scene, right? The person is flailing and screaming and the lifeguard comes to the rescue and the hair is glistening, I don't know. But actually, when a person is at the point where they've realized they can't get in, they are already so exhausted that they can barely say anything, they can barely even paddle, and that is a sign that, he said there's a fine line between someone that's just floating out there and chilling and is about to drown. Last week, Tim talked about we are the ones that need to be rescued. Today we're going to be talking about how we, with God's help, can become the lifeguards, how when we can step into those moments and rescue friends that are struggling. The best communicators, they know how to speak their mind in a way that is safe for others to hear what the person has to say, but also give space for the other person to respond. They're both totally frank and completely respectful of the other person at the same time, but it's a little bit like, you got to bring it up, it's a little bit like punching someone in the nose, but try not to make it hurt. I don't know, it's not an easy moment to step into. How do we handle these moments well? Who is ready to actually handle it? What's the strategy? How do you get the skills involved? And when it's time, how do you prepare yourself for that conversation? That's what we're talking about today. My name is Jesse, the campus pastor here at North Park, and I just love being here with you guys. How y'all doing? Worship was the bomb, huh? I love that third song. That song is awesome. Online campus, welcome you as well from your bed or wherever you're at. Just kidding. We're going to be looking at scripture today, and so the usher's going to come forward. If you don't have a Bible, just raise your hand. They'll hook you up. We're looking at Galatians 6, 1 through 5. Galatians 6, 1 through 5. It's page 633 in the House Bible. Now, lifeguards need a certain set of skills, right? Because when it really counts, and I don't know if you've ever been rescued by a lifeguard, I have. It's a scary moment where you feel so overpowered and overwhelmed by the power of the ocean. You're hoping that lifeguard has a certain set of skills that they can swim at least better than you. Maybe someone has tried to rescue you in an area of your life, and they did a terrible job at it. They stepped into a moment without building trust. Maybe they were judging you or looking down on you, condemning you, making you feel humiliated or horrible. Maybe they were trying to control you into an image that they have for you. You're like, oh, thank you, but no thank you for that bit of help right there. I feel worse, thank you very much. What training is necessary in order to rescue others when you are at your lowest moment? You're at rock bottom, maybe humiliated, and you don't want anyone to know. Maybe you're at a point where you're lost and you don't know how you got there and you don't know what it looks like to move forward, but you just know you're lost in life. Or maybe it's different. Maybe you just have a difference of opinion about something, but it's personal and kind of emotional, and the end results of this conversation have an effect on your life, and so it's important. Say for example, you want to ask your boss for a raise, and your boss has a different opinion than you. Or say you have a roommate that has dishes in the sink for like 3 days and it's starting to smell. You're like, we need to talk about this. Or maybe a spouse is maybe spending more money than you think that they should. These are important moments, crucial conversations. And there's a huge difference between someone that's trained and not trained, equipped and not equipped, and how that conversation is going to go and the results that are going to happen. Paul wrote the book of Galatians as a letter to the church of Galatia. And in 6:1, he gives some training. He says, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgressions, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Who are the spiritual? Let me tell you who they're not first. It's not a select group of elite Green Beret Christians or whatever. This is not a selective group of people, and he intentionally did not select a group of people. It can be anyone. Who is it? Well, if you look back, you who are spiritual, if you don't have to do it, but if you flip back one page to chapter 5, verse 22, you see a person who is spiritual is filled with the Spirit of the living God, and they allow God to lead their life and to influence their life in a way that it's seen by other people. It's called the fruit of the Spirit. Let's see if I get an A or maybe a B if I can remember this from like elementary school or from Sunday school. The results of a person who is spiritual is this: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, goodness, and self-control. Self-control's in there somewhere. Thanks, Laurie. Last service I added a ninth. It's my own. If you are the kind of person that's radiating or has those kind of character qualities because of God in you, you are in the process of being equipped to rescue others, according to Paul. But he hones in on one of the gifts in particular, or one of this fruit in particular. He says, in a spirit of gentleness, you should rescue someone that's caught. Why gentleness? Because in those moments, the last thing the person wants to hear is a harsh, critical, humiliating, demeaning response. This word gentle is really kind of connected to meekness, and we talk a lot about what meekness is here at this church because it's not a pushover kind of thing. It's actually a powerful thing because you're not personalizing the behavior of the other person. It's not about you. It's about the other person, and because of that, you're free to love this person in a way that makes them feel safe, but also you can communicate what's really going on because you want to see the restoration in the other person. And when you come in with those motives, man, that's the heart to come in with. When you hear something painful, maybe you have a teenager and they did it again, or a spouse and something has pained you. How do you respond? Do you respond with criticism or in a spirit of gentleness? I remember when I was a teenager, if my parents responded with a controlling, critical spirit, I'll do what I say. I'll do what I need to say to like not get in more trouble, but it just pushed me away more. You have to build a reputation of gentleness. It takes time and consistency to build and to earn the trust of the other person. There's a close friend of mine from Grace, and we asked if she would share a bit of her story of when she was caught and how she was rescued. And you may recognize her because she sings up on stage often. And she courageously decided to share with you what God did in her life. Let's check out the screens and see Michelle's story.
Through high school, I still only went to church here and there with my cousin and my aunt. And throughout college was nothing, and I was partying all the time and just really felt that I was in control of my life and I was going to do what I wanted to do. And I was, I don't know if you would say deep or what, but into the medicinal marijuana scene. And I was delivering for a dealer, and I was at the same time trying to do the grad school program through the university I was attending, and I was also, trying to keep up with the social scene, and just was really spread thin. And I was living with an ex-boyfriend at the time, and we went out to celebrate his birthday, and we got in a huge fight, and we had been drinking, and he threw my keys at me, and he said, "Fine, you can leave." And so I grabbed up my keys, and I grabbed up my dog, and I got in the car and sped away. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was coming up on this car, and they got over in the other lane, and right at the last moment I saw that they had changed lanes because there was this boulder in the road. And so I tried to swerve into the other lane to miss it, and I hit it with my front passenger tire and just kind of flipped out into the desert. When the police got there, they said, we thought we were pulling up on a fatality just by the looks of your car, and we can't believe that you're okay. And as all that was happening, I was just hysterical and just kind of screaming at the top of my lungs, like, why do I have to be alive? Like, I would rather not be. So this was June 5th, 2010, and I knew that night that I had been kept alive, and like there was just this little bubble of my side of the car that hadn't been crunched in, and I called my aunt the next day and I said, I want to start going to church with you again. Like, I need something, and I'm not in control of my life. And I gave my life to Christ, and I just knew that He was what I needed, and was what I had been searching for.
An incredible story of God's protection over Michelle, the bubble. And that even in the midst of her not even knowing why she wants to live, God rescuing her and not being done with her. And she's in a place now where she's rescuing others in a lot of different ways here at Grace. But there's another rescuer in the story, kind of one behind the scenes that I want to talk about. Who was that? Anybody want to shout it out? Jesus, amen. Who else? A person. Her aunt, thanks. Yeah, her aunt was this person that brought her to church in high school, right? And then in college, Michelle got into some of the reasons she stopped going. But I wonder how many prayers Michelle's aunt prayed for Michelle. I wonder if, I don't know the story, but if she ever faced any rejection from Michelle, saying, hey, come to church. And the patience that went into Michelle's aunt with Michelle. But do you know how I know that Michelle's aunt did something right? Because in that moment where Michelle was throwing up her arms, screaming, drowning, just completely broken and lost, she called her aunt the next day. And her aunt brought her to a place where she knew that she needed to go, a place where God can enter into her life and restore her and make her new again. It's an amazing story, and if you are allowing God to train you to become a rescuer of people, there's going to be moments in your life where you're going to get that phone call. And when you get that phone call, how do you prepare yourself to go into the rescue? If you're following along with your outlines, you can see how we're moving along here. You don't want to forget your training when it really counts. Let's go back to Mike, the lifeguard, for a moment. I asked Mike, what's your mindset? When you see someone out there that's drowning, what's your mindset? He's like, okay, well, first I get all my gear together, and I go out there, and he said this, I think strategically about how I need to handle the moment. What's the current doing? What are the swells doing? Do I need to paddle left, right? Do I need to duck? What do I need to do? I need to think strategically. He also said, I need to be calm. Because when I am calm, I bring that calmness to the person who is completely freaking out, thinking they're about at the point of death. I said, Mike, how do you overcome fear? That's one of the questions I asked him. He said, I have to have confidence in my skills. I have to know that I have the knowledge necessary to get the job done, and then I just step into it and just do it. We need to have the skills in order to enter a crucial conversation and not just wing it. The first skill is we need to start with our hearts, with your heart. Because if you aren't getting yourself right, you're not going to be able to get the conversation right when you get into it. A lot of these concepts I get from this book called Crucial Conversations. Most of the staff has read this book, a number of our leaders, and Tim and myself, we were talking about this book. We put this stuff into practice because we believe in the concepts that this person puts forward, and it's a powerful thing. I love this quote from the book. If you speak when you're angry, you're going to make the best speech you're going to ever regret. Isn't that true? For those of us, and there's very few that are really emotionally intelligent, we don't have to think very far back to think about a moment where we had a great speech that we regret. First, we need to dial down the emotions and begin to think strategically about this moment. The best dialoguers the best in conversation understand that first I need to work on me, and we second. If you read that book, you'll see that the first half of the book is completely dedicated to you having the conversation before you even have it, preparing yourself for the conversation. Especially if you're addressing a spouse or a boss or a friend who hurts you, part of the beginning process is to understand that it's not all the other person's fault. That we need to ask and reflect on what part have I played. It's not just the other person's fault that's gotten us to the place that we're in. First, you need to start with your heart. Second, you need to focus on what you really want. Because what you want matters. Skilled people begin with the right motives, and they carry those right motives through the entire conversation, the entire crucial conversation, because emotions are going to run high in that moment, and we can't let them get the best of us. We need to be skilled and able to follow through with that conversation. In preparing yourself, you need to ask a few questions. What do I really want from this conversation? What do I really want? What do I want for the other person? What do I want for our relationship? What do I really want? And in light of those things, how should I really act as I enter into this crucial conversation? It cannot be, I want to win. I want to hurt the other person or punish the other person. It can't even be, I want to keep the peace, because that's not getting you anywhere. According to verse 1 that we just read, it has to be restoration, the restoration of the person who is caught. That is God's goal. The cool thing is that in a matter of seconds, God can transform your heart. This book, Crucial Conversations, was not written by Christians, but the concepts are awesome. But it's even more so when you pray and allow God to change your heart. You can transform in a moment from a dangerous weapon, busting out the bazooka, ready to take that person out, to a curious partner, from an enemy to an ally, we are on opposing teams, and I'm going to hit you in the face with the ball, to we're on the same team. We really want the same thing. And in a moment, you can have your heart change. My dad got a phone call from me about 15 years ago. It was from the Irvine Police Department. And many of you know my story, but I want to hone in on part of that story in particular. You see, all throughout high school and my first year in college, I was 19 when I called my dad. I didn't make it easy on my dad. I got caught doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, mushrooms and high-speed car chases, and I could tell you all kinds of stories, can't I? We've shared some stories. I won't get into that. I don't want to give anyone ideas. I didn't make it easy on my dad, and I called my dad, and that was my first time in jail for meth. And he left work to come pick me up, and he decided that he was going to let me deal with it on my own. He decided this is his deal. Finally, he got caught in a real way, and that he's going to let the hammer drop. And he was trying to decide, am I going to kick him out of the house or not? And on his way. And the cool thing is, I just called my dad a couple days ago, and we relived this moment. And my dad said that he prayed on his way. And he heard God speak to him, like clearly. God said, don't do anything. Just love your son and watch what I do. And it's amazing. My dad was very clear on the phone a couple days ago that he felt free from feeling like he had to rescue me or do something right, or it wasn't him. He was just like, this isn't me. This is God. This is going to be you. And so he got to the station, and I'll never forget the moment in the foyer of the police department. And in the cell, I was a mess. I had gotten to the point of realizing I'm addicted, and I want to quit, and I don't know how. And so I confessed a lot of this stuff to my dad, and I was hiding so much of it. You get really good at hiding things when you're an addict. Anyways, and he put his arms around me and said, let's go home. I love you. And it was such an amazing, powerful thing for me. He gave me a couple pieces of advice. He said, your friends are going to be calling you. And if you really want to quit, you're going to need some distance from your friends. So a couple days later, literally a couple days later, my dad said, I may want to check out this college group at the Vineyard in Newport Beach, a church. And I went, and I gave my life to Christ. And it's been over 15 years now that I haven't done a drug and been pursuing God. The point of why I bring this up is because my dad allowed God to change his heart in a moment and to prepare him to be a rescuer. And I don't know where I'd be today if my dad didn't take that moment to prepare himself. God's goal is always the restoration of the other person. And the timing of the rescue is key. How do you know when to dive in for the rescue? Because you can't rescue someone that doesn't want to be rescued. Jesus himself can't even rescue someone that doesn't want to be rescued. Look at the rich young ruler, for example. I sat through hundreds of awesome sermons in high school, and that powerful truth just bounced off my heart because it was closed and hard. But as soon as my heart was open and soft, it just went deep, and that was the moment. And how do we know when that moment comes? Let's talk about those who are caught. Who are those who are caught? If anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Verse 3 helps us understand those who are caught a little bit more. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. How does that help us understand the transgressor? The transgression is someone who is living in a sinful practice. They are living a lie. They're living a behavior. And here's what sin does. Sin lies to you and makes you feel like it's making you alive. It makes you feel like you're free and that you have joy. And, it makes you happy for a little bit. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. But the lie of sin is that we think we have control and master it, but it masters and controls us. And the person that is caught, the Greek word is actually, they don't even realize they're caught. They're surprised when this person brings it up. They're unaware. They're duped by it. They are deceived by the nuance of sin and how we can justify it. This person is actively involved in it, and they don't even realize that it's controlling them. There's a friend of mine from church, and I feel like her story really highlights this idea of living a lie, an area of your life that you think you have control of and you don't. And I spoke with her this week, and her husband, and I asked if I could share their story, and they graciously said yes. She's been a part of this church. They have been for a number of years, and her husband was consuming a lot of alcohol and was a functioning alcoholic. And when he was home and drunk, she told me how it affected her and his job, his responsibility, as a father. And she said, and I'm going to quote this so I don't get in trouble later, that it just sucked when he was drunk. It just sucked for me. It sucked for the family. He was functioning, but it just sucked. She thought that the idea of a codependent was a weak person, someone that doesn't have control, someone that is like a pushover. She didn't see herself in that way. But she got to a point where life had become unmanageable. And so she went to a therapist. And this therapist, in a gentle way, helped her see something about herself differently. The therapist gave her a piece of paper that defined a codependent, or what she likes to call an enabler. And as she began to read it, she realized, man, an enabler is someone that's wants control. They want to try and change the situation, but they're actually trying to fix the other person in the process, and they are unable to fix or control the other person. She said that she needed to begin to own her own story. And instead, and in that process, she didn't label her husband as or condemn her husband. It's your fault, and I can't believe you're doing this, and how could you, to you not being home or you being home and drunk really makes me sad that you're not being the father that we both know you want to be, and the husband that we both know that you want to be. See, enablers, they try and fix the person. They see themselves as better than, and looking down, they're fixing the other person, almost like a savior complex. And as she was sharing with me, they've come a long way, and they're in a completely different place, and it's amazing to see. But a lot of people knew her, and she was a leader at the church years ago, and a lot of people knew her as like this nice person, but she said deep down, she was seething with anger. She said that what we don't need are a bunch of nice people at this church. We need a safe place, and this is her words, where we can be real about what's going on in our lives. She was caught, and someone in gentleness showed her the way out and showed her how she's deceived by this idea. And she started going to an awesome group. It's called Hope. It's charities group here at the church, and it's for people, spouses, family members, friends who have someone who's an addict. And it's such a powerful group. I've been, and if you're in that place, I highly encourage you to go. You can go online to our Connect page, or to the Connect board. All the groups are out there. How do we time the rescue? We need to recognize the moments where life becomes unmanageable for the other person. There's a cool wordplay here. In verse 2, Paul wrote Galatians to the church of Galatia, bear one another's burdens. And then in verse 5, each will have to bear his own load. You see, the word bear is a verb, and it's a present tense command. We are commanded to bear one another's burdens, and the word burden is someone who's carrying a load that is heavier than they can manage on their own. It's this oppressive load that requires assistance. But verse 5, each will have to bear. The Greek word bear is a future tense verb. And the load is a word that's like this manageable burden. It's a proper burden. It's almost like a hiker with a backpack that has to carry this weight. And it's future tense. That's why it says we'll have to bear. This is a load that each one of us are going to have to carry, one load or another, right? Maybe that's a temptation that we're just going to be, or a lie that or different ways we have loads that we have to carry. The difference is about weight and manageability. And when it becomes unmanageable, that's when a person needs help. Imagine I see you trying to carry a couch, and you're trying to pick this thing up and move it by yourself, right? You pick up one side, you're like, and then you go to the other side, and I'm watching you struggle, and it would be like mean if I didn't offer some help, right? That's that unmanageable burden that we are commanded to step in and help with in verse 2. There was another time that I was caught, and it was by my wife. And it was about 7 years ago, and each service, there's a different moment of crying anyways. She had caught me looking at something online, pornography. And this was a couple years in our marriage. I thought once I got married, this was going to be done. I can have, that's a lie sin, right? Anyways,
she caught me, and I got the call. And I was working, and she was disgusted, horrified, so upset. I mean, this hits on some of the most sensitive insecurities that she has. And on my way home, I was just caught, and what are you going to do? And as I got home, and I'll never forget in the bedroom that moment. And I again confessed and was just a mess, and so I wanted to change. You know what she wanted to do? She wanted to kick my butt. I mean, she was ready to unload and tell me how hurt she was, and I hurt her. But she prayed before I got home. And she will tell you in her own words that it was not her, it was God in her that allowed her to be gentle with me, and she forgave me, and she prayed for me in that moment. And if she would have responded in a different way, I don't know if I would have been able to step forward in the ways that I did. She rescued me in a spirit of gentleness. A couple weeks later, I did some research, and I was hiding it even from close friends. But I went to a conference at a church that I had never been to called Unleashed, a sexual integrity conference. And I went by myself, and I found a guy named James. And he was leading a group called FMO, for men only, at a church in Hillcrest. I'd never been there either. But these groups for men only are Christian sexual integrity small groups. And they're actually all over the country. There's like 10 of them in San Diego. And I went for 2 years every week. And I was in seminary and in ministry and all that stuff. And then as I transitioned out, I spent 6 months at a Christian therapist that specialized in this. Actually just right down the hill, down Texas Street, Renicky and Associates. I knew that I needed to get to the bottom of this, not just change the behavior, but get to the heart of it. And I'm so thankful for my wife who rescued me. And I'm so pumped to say that we, last semester, started our very own FMO here at Grace Church. It's an official FMO group for men only. And I just need to say that I know that it's part of many of our stories. And I just highly encourage you. There's hope. I know what it's like to be hopeless and feel like this is never going to change. You will not be humiliated or anything. You will find hope and the tools necessary to change. There's another, and I look forward to having the FWO. They actually have one because it's actually even double shameful for a woman. And I know it's not just a guy thing. We also have another group called Restored by Grace. I'm rocking the shirt, and it's a group that meets here at the church, just like FMO. They're Wednesday night. Restored by Grace is Thursday night. And if you're in substance abuse, you just got to go. It's at the Underground, 6 p.m. Hope, love, encouragement. Imagine you're picking up your laptop because you're, done with work, and I say, hey, can I help you carry that laptop? Be like, I think I can handle my laptop, thank you very much. I think I can manage this weight on my own. It would be insulting, right, if I said, hey, can I help you carry that? We need to understand, and this is the timing component, we need to gently enter into the unmanageable burden when the heart is open, but know when to not intervene when someone is carrying their own load and respecting that they are working on it and they're not self-deceived. Wow, we are late. All right, a couple quick things. In your program, I want everybody to pull it out. I don't care if this is your first time or you help build this church. Grab your program right now. Grab it. Everyone, grab that thing, pick it up. There's a rescue card in there. All of us have a burden or a weight that we have to carry. And it's going to be completely anonymous. No one's going to know what you checked. I would like everybody to check one of those boxes that you identify with. Close it up, ball it up tight so no one can see it. Or just fold it. And when the bucket comes around in a few minutes, drop it in the bucket, and we're going to take all those, and we're going to put them all up on a board, and we're going to be able to see how we as a church are imperfect people that are growing, and we're going to see how we're not alone, but lots of people are going through similar things, and it's going to be a beautiful display of who we are. So please fill that out. When you get to the conversation, you need to state it. This is the actual conversation. This is my life application for you, so I encourage you to fill it out. I want you to memorize it. Tim and I both thought this was a great idea for you. It will bring power to your conversations. I'm going to
do this quickly, so follow along. Say you have a parent-teacher conference, and the teacher thinks your child needs to be held back. Or you have the coach of your son or daughter's team is a you-know-what. Or you have a meeting and with your boss, and you think you have a marketing strategy idea that's really, you think is going to be a better strategy. How do you have those conversations with people? You need to start with the facts, because the facts are the least offensive, the least controversial. Your conclusions are more controversial to the person. They're also more persuasive. And so you can say, hey, I've done my research on, search engine marketing, boss. Let me show you that research. Because the boss loves to his strategy for marketing is you get the orange paint and paint the window front with 20% off. And you're like, that was cool 10 years ago, but we may want to think of a different strategy, marketing strategy. So you start with the facts, and then you tell your story. This is tricky because this is when it often can become offensive and a little bit judgmental, your conclusions, or the person can feel that way. Because they really like their paint. And you think that you're going to get more visibility and more business with the same amount of investment. And this is an idea that needs to be shared. You need to start with the facts and tell your story because the results are important to you and to this other person. It takes confidence, but if you've done your homework, it's going to make sense to the person how you've drawn those conclusions. Let me give you another example. Well, no, I'm going to skip that because we don't have time. Next, ask their path. It was about a cheating spouse who wasn't cheating, and she got her conclusions wrong. Anyways, ask their path. Facts are right, not the right conclusion. Ask their path, because if you really want to get the right end result, their input and their story matters. It takes confidence to share your facts and your story. It shows humility and humbleness to say, I want to hear what you have to say because it matters. You can say, hey boss, have you thought about a social marketing strategy? What do you think are the pros and cons of that? Listen carefully and be ready to abandon or at least reshape your story in light of what the person calls the pool of shared meaning. Next is talk tentatively. You need to tell your story not like it is like absolute truth. You know what I mean? There's a difference between this is my story and you need to be open to challenging your conclusions. It could be something as simple as I'm not totally committed to this idea, but I think it deserves us considering it. When you say something like, you're always like that. Why do you always do that to me? Really? Do they always do that? Are they really that, you are a fill in the blank. Really? They're not a child of God? That's not really who they are? We say these absolute statements, and those absolute statements don't increase our ability to persuade and our influence. They actually decrease our influence and ability to change that person's life. We speak tentatively because we're uncertain of what the absolute truth in this situation is. And finally, we encourage testing. We say, hey, I really want to hear what you have to say. I know there's shortcomings to the social media strategy. What do you think they are? You can play devil's advocate. He gives all these examples of how you can make it safe for the other person to share their story. It's a powerful tool. I encourage you to memorize it and put it into practice and watch how God uses it in your life to rescue and to restore others. Well, I don't want us to leave without someone, if there is someone who needs to be rescued by God. Let's just all take a moment to create space for that person. Your therapist, I'm all about therapy. Your husband or wife or friend cannot rescue you. The only person that can rescue you is Jesus Christ. And if there's anyone here you probably look like it's all together, but you know it's not. And I'm going to lead us in a minute through a prayer. And if you need God to come into your life to forgive you, that's where it starts. So you can start a relationship with God. You can pray this prayer and God will hear your prayer. And he is faithful to forgive you. And he will begin to speak into your life and he will lead you into rescuing into just a new life. If you need that, let's all bow our heads. You can pray this prayer after me.